Unless you have lived under a rock for these past 3 years, you know that the World Economic Forum, founded by Klaus Schwab, has come under intense scrutiny for their seemingly villainous nature. Yet at the same time, we are watching the associated leaders, politicians, celebrities, corporate leaders share optimistic messaging about how we're going to have an inclusive world and save the environment and save democracy and so on. So there is a big clash of narratives here. How could it be that this organization is narrating this wonderful thing on the one hand and being so villainized? Well, I think it is down to some of the visions. One is their Great Reset vision, where you will own nothing and be happy. This is, of course, a vision of a service-based economy that's going to protect the environment and is going to be so convenient. But it sounds rather dystopian. Another idea that they have is that there's going to be a fourth industrial revolution, and the associated members of the forum seem to be very busy pushing the agenda of this fourth industrial revolution, which is just a fancy way of saying transhumanism. So let's spend just a minute having a look at what this fourth industrial revolution is all about.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
So that is the fourth industrial revolution, the melding of the organic and the inorganic. Klaus Schwab, Yuval Noah Harari, the intellectual that is closely associated with the World Economic Forum, many of the associated politicians, they are very excited about this vision for the future. When I hear it, I think of Blade Runner, I think of dystopian science fiction literature, I think of Skynet.
Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it is to be a slave.
This is a central topic for the World Economic Forum. And since these are people with a lot of power, a lot of money, a lot of influence to set the agenda for the development of the world, we cannot be neutral to their obsession with this vision. It seems like we're going to have to grapple with it in some way or another. But this is the long timeline, so I would like now to look at the description of this year's meeting. So let's look at that quickly. The world today is at a critical inflection point. The twin triggers of the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine rattled an already brittle global system. Economic growth in the world's largest economies is stalling while navigating headwinds from rising food and energy prices, so on and so forth. What I find interesting here is that they are describing the problem, and at the same time they are pushing the policy agendas that are creating the problem reaction solution, I suppose. It continues, for the first time since the 1970s, the world is facing a precarious disequilibrium, with growth and inflation moving in oppositive directions. That's an interesting word, oppositive. This is occurring alongside heightened geoeconomic fragmentation, financial sector vulnerabilities, including stretched asset prices and high debt levels, and a climate crisis spiraling out of control, which could magnify any growth slowdown, particularly in emerging markets. All right, that's enough. That's a lot of lingo. That's a lot of word salad. And even the end of that paragraph or that sentence, particularly in emerging markets, what we're faced with in emerging markets and whatever challenges they have is as a result of monetary policy set by Western countries, and particularly the United States and the Fed. Because of the money conjuring of the United States and the West, the various emerging economies have been arenas for massive drive-by shootings, like financial shootings, where tons of conjured money go into markets are now pulled out of markets as the banks and the institutions see fit. And so we here in the West, we have been ravaging these emerging markets. And the people present in the World Economic Forum should know that, and maybe take responsibility for the money conjuring policies and all of the other shenanigans that have been commonplace in the world over the last many years. So I would say that, yeah, maybe that's a description of what is going on in the world, objectively speaking, but it also seems like a bit of an attempt to whitewash responsibility for actually being at cause for creating many of these problems. Let's look at another one here. This is one of the presentations, and I give credit to the redacted guys for putting me on to these various presentations. So let's look at a couple of them. Here we have Ready for Brain Transparency. The promise of neurotechnology to improve lives, and to gain insight into the human brain is growing. How can we uphold data privacy and personal freedom as we make strides toward a world of brain transparency? This, to me, is like full-on dystopian language. Like, we're gonna read the brain. And in line with the vision of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we can only imagine that what they're referring to here is that soon enough there will be early adopters that are going to have brain implants. So this is going to be an easy way to increase the brain's ability to remember, I suppose, and to basically download information matrix style. And apparently that's going to lead to privacy violation issues. But then who's going to be tapping the line? Who's going to be listening in? Is that the government, do I hear? Is it going to be a corporation, do I hear? I hope they will have to click my GDPR privacy policy box and read my terms and agreements before they can become a member of my brain space. But I don't know what their vision is. Apparently they want to protect my privacy, but I'm not so sure. Certainly sounds like they're imagining a future where they can read my brain. Here's another. Deployment in the industrial metaverse. The next era of the internet is fast approaching in the form of the metaverse, an immersive, interoperable, and synchronous digital world. I cannot believe the pompous use of words they have at the World Economic Forum. In the industrial metaverse, unique opportunities will arise from the convergence of artificial intelligence, digital twins. Is that like an avatar that you have in the metaverse, like your digital version of yourself? I'm not quite sure, actually. You let me know in the comments. Data and robotic technologies. It sounds lovely. Like a beautiful summer morning in the flower meadows. That kind of lovely. I love it. It's so dystopian.
The hills are alive
How can industrial leaders maximize the benefits of the metaverse while avoiding its disruptive potential? Well, I would say there is quite a bit of disruptive potential, but at the same time, well, let's listen to Ursula von der Leyen from the European Commission talk about it.
The next decades will see the greatest industrial transformation of our times, maybe of any times. And those who develop and manufacture the technology that will be the foundation of tomorrow's economy will have the greatest competitive edge. So the scale of the opportunity is clear for all to see.
All right, so what I hear here is that there is going to be a push for being innovators in the space of the fourth industrial revolution. So there's all kinds of money to be made here, all kinds of opportunities. Now that we're turning the human body and mind into commodities in some kind of freak version of capitalism. So join in and learn how to extract resources from the human body and change it for maximum gain in the market. Join the party. That's what it sounds like. Let's look at the next story or presentation that they have planned for us. 100 days to outrace the next pandemic. The next pandemic, you say? Why? Why do you think there's going to be a next pandemic? Why are all of these people talking about the next pandemic as imminent when historically pandemics have been exceedingly rare? Fishy, don't you think? A bit strange. Creating safe and effective vaccines in 100 days is estimated to give economies and societies a chance of containing the next outbreak before it spreads. What will it take to get there? Well, you certainly weren't very successful this time around, were you? Given that a continent such as Africa, which had very low adoption of the vaccines, fared much better over this pandemic period than the countries that adopted the vaccines very widely. So if higher adoption doesn't result in better resistance, then should we not question if it was actually a good strategy to begin with? And we're faced now with a situation where the bivalent booster that protects against multiple variants at the same time wasn't actually even tested for safety and efficacy on human beings, but on 8 mice. 8 mice, that's all it takes to determine that it's safe these days. Essentially, the 100 days development cycle is going to skip safety and efficacy studies and just be assumed to be a really safe and effective vaccine without any trials. How can you take these people seriously? I want to highlight an article on the World Economic Forum website as well, because one of the concepts that they seem very taken by in Davos is this idea of the 15-minute city. The surprising stickiness of the 15-minute city. What is the 15-minute city? It is a city that is very convenient for you, where everything that you need is within 15 minutes of where you live. You don't need to use a car anymore to get the things that you need. And plus, we're going to have a great reset anyway, so all of the things that you need will be provided by the service economy. You won't own anything, right? But we have looked at some of the other technologies that are being pushed here. Let's actually bring in one last story that I think is relevant. It's this idea of battery passports. We'll come back to the 15-minute city in a moment. Batteries power the energy transition to a sustainable future, but require critical minerals, the extraction of which comes with an environmental and human rights risk, including child labor. How can a battery passport, I mean, who even knows what that is, contribute to protecting human rights, safeguarding the environment, and reforming consumer decision-making? Again, it's a word salad camouflaging a rather more problematic reality, which is that every battery for electric cars will be equipped with advanced monitoring technology so that the car that you drive will send data to the mainframe of whoever governs you and signal the kind of behavior that you have. And then you will be granted privileges or be robbed of privileges based on your behavior. So when we go back to the 15-minute city, you can understand that even if you own a car, you may not be allowed to drive very far because of this human rights preserving surveillance technology in your battery that will tell you, no, you've been driving too much, so stay within the 15-minute city. Thank you very much. You have everything you need there. Now, this is the smart city vision for the future. And given that I live here in the countryside, I would very much like to see what kind of plans they have for getting our adoption, but I'm sure they're looking into something. So, transhumanism, Great Reset, 15-minute cities, turning the human being into a commodity for industrial production and services. Doesn't sound so good, does it? But these folks at the World Economic Forum, they seem to think that this is a foregone conclusion. This will come to pass. And anyone who disagrees is some kind of conspiracy theorist or an obstacle to the natural progression of humanity, of our evolution. And so we are in this strange situation with these people that on the one hand, they portray themselves as neutral observers of developmental trends in humanity, while at the same time, they are actually the main proponents for those trends, which is problem, reaction, solution. They create problems. For instance, the limitations on freedom of movement and trade that were implemented during the COVID pandemic, they trashed the economy without actually being proven very effective, as we saw back in the days from the Johns Hopkins study. So they trashed the economy with the pronounced intention of protecting you, but they failed to do that, and they still trashed the economy. So here you trash the economy, and now you talk about the problems of the world with a trashed economy, and how can we help? This is something really, really twisted. The question then remains, what drives them? Why are they there with 5,000 military protecting them while they pretend to be friends of humanity? Many of us don't see them as friends of humanity, and I think it is time to consider these people as irrelevant bozos that are trying to create their own little fantasy universe, and they want to invite you into it. But since you have free will, my friend, you don't have to accept the invitation. We are in that bifurcation in society now where some people will agree, they will think this is a wonderful invitation, and yes, we will move into these 15-minute smart city convenient. Oh, it sounds so convenient. We'll be so happy there. But then there will be those people who will be like, no, I don't want to be surveilled. I don't want to not own anything. Why don't we just, raise our hands and say, hey, I'm not going to be a cyborg. I actually kind of like being a human being. And if you agree with me on that, then let me know in the comments below that you also don't want to be a cyborg. You're not on board for the fourth industrial revolution. You're rather more interested in a new earth and a new paradigm for humanity. And tell me in the comments below if you agree with the things that I've said, if you want to challenge the things that I've said, if you want more of this kind of content in the future on truth and thriving in this time of awakening, then please help the channel by liking this video, subscribe, and then also go here if you're interested in watching a video I did a week ago on how the intellectual expert class is declining because they have just completely entered the matrix and are now peddling disinformation left, right, and center. So that's it for today. I will see you in the next video. Be well.